Everyone, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, southeast Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel. Here on this auspicious day of the appearance of Lord Varaha, when he rescued the earth, when it had been dislodged from its orbit by the demon Hiranyaksha. Well, there were two appearances, but putting them together, he both rescued the earth, and he killed the demon Hiranyaksha, the brother of Hiranyakashipu. Let's hear the Brhad Bhagavatamrta, shall we? I know all of you can't wait to hear what's going to happen next. It's such a extremely interesting pastime going on. Srimad Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, the same author that wrote Brhad Bhagavatamrta, compiled this stotra in glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sweetest glorification of the Bhagavatam that exists, I think. And it goes like this: Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandodita Ditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvade Sevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are completely, supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madgodo Mad Mahadana, Mannishtadaga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu sadhu tadayin, atini chotata kada, hanamuncha kadachin mam, premna rit yospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, coming to the end of the 7th chapter of the first part of the last of the first part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Krishna has been brought back to his normal consciousness by an artful ruse by Lord Brahma and Lord Balaram and the other devotees of Dwarka, including Uddhava. Now he's back in his palace after having been taken to New Vrindavan and acting out his Braj pastimes with all the residents there in the form of murtis. And Balarama has handled the situation so nicely to bring him back to his the consciousness that he is meant now to deliver the burden of the earth, of all the demoniac forces. And he's come back to his palace, and it's all everyone else has kind of gone their way, and he's now with the queens, his queens. And Rukmini has glorified the gopis, showing the intense degree of humility and tolerance that all the residents of the spiritual world have for one another. And Uddhava is now speaking. We're beginning with text 85 or 86? 86, 85. 85. Uddhava said, the other queens all agreed. Only Satyabhama, Satyajiti, unable to tolerate those words, entered her chamber of anger. Sri Parikshit said, the Blessed Lord of the life of the gopis then ordered angrily, bring here at once that daughter of the foolish king. Commentary. In reference to Krishna, the epithet Shriman means endowed with the wealth of supreme love, or else possessing all beautiful splendor. He is the Lord of the life of the gopis, headed by Sri Radha. Or, alternatively, they are the rulers of his life. Therefore, when Satyabhama, the daughter of Satyajit, showed displeasure at the glorification of the gopis, Krishna demanded she be brought before him for correction. And Krishna angrily reminded his devotees that his wife's father had been implicated in a scandal over the Syamantaka jewel. Text 87. Satyabhama, most expert in the arts of amorous love, was always ready to skillfully serve her husband in the mood of jealous pride, knowing him also to be fully conversant with the skills of love and eager to enjoy with the cowherd women. Text 88. Upon hearing this order from her maidservants, the intelligent Satyabhama got up, bathed, and quickly came before Krishna. Commentary. Satyabhama is Sri Krishna's very dear wife and would never act in such a way to disturb his mind. She makes a show of petulance because she knows what gives Krishna pleasure. Being at heart a great romantic, he enjoys affectionate quarrels with his beloved queens. Calming the anger of his wives is one of his favorite diversions, and moreover, he feels great satisfaction in glorifying the gopis of Braja, including Chandravali and others. He is always eager to relish the sublime taste of their love. But why does Krishna take pleasure in the ignoble sport of struggling to subdue the pride of quarrelsome women? Because he is the topmost connoisseur of conjugal reciprocations. So these dealings give him unequaled joy. Text 89. She hid herself behind a pillar and stood there, filled with shame and fear. Krishna noticed her and, still angry, spoke to her in a clear voice. Commentary. Although Satyabhama hid herself so that Krishna could not see her, he smelled her unique fragrance and noticed other subtle signs of her presence. Satyabhama often had fits of jealousy, but now she feared that by showing her temper at an unsuitable moment, she might have gone too far. The Supreme Lord's service should never be performed haphazardly, but always with careful attention to satisfying him with just what he wants and at the time he wants it. Text 90, 91. The Supreme Lord said, O weak-minded Satyajiti, Just as you grew angry when Rukmini obtained special favors like the Parijata flower, now you are angry at our intense love for the people of Braj. Silly woman, don't you know that I am ruled by their desires? Commentary. Displeased with Satyabhama, Krishna remembers that her father had sometimes acted foolishly. Thus he addresses her as daughter of Satyajit, and calls her weak-minded and silly. He refers to himself in the plural, either because he is thinking of Shri Balaram and Rohini, who share his feelings for the Brajbasis, or because he is proud of himself for having the great treasure of the Brajbasis' love. Text 92. If the people of Braja thought it good that I renounce everything, I promise you that in a moment I would do just that. Commentary. If we are to take these words seriously, Krishna would not hesitate to abandon his wives, his children, and everyone else in Dwarka, if that would make the Brajbasis happy. But we should also take into account that a solemn vow is usually made only before someone in whom one has firm trust, and this means that Satyabhama also is very dear to Krishna. Text 93. The praise offered by the Venerable Brahma was not spoken in vain. I can never fully repay these devotees, and so I am utterly indebted to them. Commentary. Krishna is the all-powerful Supreme Lord. At his command are boundless energies, ready to fulfill his every desire. But he cannot repay his debt of gratitude to his devotees in Sri Vrindavan. Thus he constantly looks for small favors he can do for them as tokens of his affection. As Brahma stated while praising Krishna's super excellence, my mind becomes bewildered just trying to think of what reward other than you could be found anywhere. You are the embodiment of all benedictions, which you shower upon these residents of the cowherd community of Vrindavan. You have already arranged to give yourself to Putana and her family members in exchange for her disguising herself as a devotee. So what is left for you to give these devotees in Vrindavan, whose homes, wealth, friends, bodies, children, dear relatives, and very lives and hearts are all dedicated only to you? Bhagavatam 10:14, 35. Text 94. But even if for their pleasure I were to return to live with them, I don't see how that would help. Text 95. Just by seeing me, they become so dazed and bewildered by ecstasies from deep within that they fail to recognize their own bodies and everything that has to do with their bodies, what to speak of the rest of the world. Commentary. As soon as the devotees of Braja see Krishna's beauty, their prema transforms into intense ecstasies, manifest in their bodies as trembling, perspiring, and other sattvika symptoms. These devotees then enter a trance of bewilderment, losing external consciousness. In this state, called vimoham, the most experienced trance, vishishta moham, the Supreme Person reveals himself in full, with his attributes and associates. This state, therefore, lies far beyond the partial realization of the truth attained by impersonalists in their ordinary samadhi, with its artificial background of voidness. The masculine pronoun te, they, here indicates all the Brajavasis, both male and female, or else Krishna is really talking only about his female devotees, the young gopis, but avoids using the feminine pronoun taha because in the present company, he does not want to talk about them openly. In either case, when the Brajbasis see him, they forget their own bodies and everything connected with them, family, social position, responsibilities, and so on. They forget whatever plans they may have had for success in this life and the next. Therefore, since the Brajbasis, upon seeing Krishna again, would lose all contact with reality, Krishna sees so no hope of restoring them to health by returning. His going back to them would only make their condition worse. Text 96. So their plan won't be relieved even if they see me. Their hearts will be so disturbed by thoughts of separation from me that whatever measures I take for their happiness will only double their grief. Commentary. In their trance of separation, the devotees of Braja are aware of nothing but Krishna. Their ecstasy is so deep that as a natural effect of remembering Krishna, they see him physically before them. Other pure devotees, whose love for Krishna is not on the same level of perfection, have separate experiences of him, internally and externally. Dhruva, for example, concentrated his mind on Lord Vishnu in deep meditation, but his internal vision of the Lord did not expand into a vision outside like that of the gopis. Only when Lord Vishnu came to Dhruva to offer him special mercy did the Lord disappear from Dhruva's heart to show him externally. As described in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam 492. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and on which Dhruva Maharaj in his mature yogic process was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. The full vision of Krishna's beauty relished by the Brajbasis is the ultimate fruit of spiritual perfection. One might suggest, therefore, that if Krishna were to present himself once more before the Brajbasis, their condition would certainly improve. This might be true, but to recover from the intense pain of separation would take time, and the Brajbasis, thinking Krishna might leave them again, might relapse into their trance of separation. Therefore, Krishna thinks that returning to them would only cast them deeper into suffering. The painful anxiety of separation from Krishna puts the Atmas of the Brajavasis, meaning their hearts, their bodies, and the very essence of their being, into turmoil. When a person has not eaten for a long time, the vital elements of his body are depleted, so that even after obtaining food, he takes time to recover. He does not recover simply by having good food placed before him. He has to eat, and in a manner that does not make him sicker. Then he has to wait for the nourishment to be distributed in his body. Similarly, Krishna thinks the Brajbasis will not recover just by seeing me. They will have to enjoy pastimes with me, and not only for a short time, but for as long as needed to fulfill their desires. I fear that this will prove impossible, since I have too many other things to take care of elsewhere. I am incapable of curing them. Even if Krishna's concern was unfounded, if he were to treat their disease of separation by returning to them, they would remain susceptible to agitation, thinking he might leave them again. Their anxiety, being an essential part of their very existence, cannot be cured even by his personal darshan. As Krishna indicates by the word vai, he knows this from his own experience with the devotees of Vrindavan. And so also do the devotees he is speaking to in Dwarka. As Shukadev Goswami relates in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the last chapter of the 10th canto, 1090, 15, after Krishna's queens enjoyed water sports with Krishna, the queens mourned, "O Kurari bird, at night you are lamenting. Somewhere in this world the Supreme Lord is asleep in a hidden place. But you are wide awake, O friend, unable to fall asleep. Is it that you, like us, have had your heart pierced to the core by the munificent, playful, smiling glances of the lotus-eyed Lord?" While speaking this verse, Krishna's queens were not actually separated from him. Thus they say, Ratyam Ishwara, referring to the night as different from the present moment. In fact, they were speaking during the day and had just finished playing with Krishna in the water. Introducing these sports, Shukadev had said, the queens then became stunned in ecstatic trance, their minds absorbed in Krishna alone. Thinking of their lotus-eyed Lord, they spoke as if insane. Please hear their words from me as I recite them. Bhagavatam 1090, 14. Thus the queens, whose only object of attention was Krishna, were momentarily speechless in trance. When their thoughts of Krishna impelled them to speak, they spoke slowly, as if recovering from mental imbalance. From their words it is evident that Krishna's queens were foreseeing the pain of separation, even while enjoying with him. Shukadev Goswami chose to end his narration of the 10th canto on this note, especially intense sweetness, Madhurena Samapayet. Krishna may be the omniscient Supreme Lord and the most expert arranger of things to satisfy his devotees. But these very special devotees, the devotees in Braja, he feels unable to help. Tesham, there, may again refer either to the Brajbasis in general or else only to the gopis. His sentiments expressed in this verse are befitting in either case. Any attempts to make the Brajbasis happy will quickly make everything go wrong, just as water thrown on an oil fire makes the fire explode and go out of control. Thus Krishna faces a dilemma. On one hand, the Brajbasis do not know how they can survive in separation from Krishna, and on the other hand, even if he stays with them a long time, they will inevitably worry that at any moment he might leave them again. As this most exquisite agony of viraha bhava rises in their hearts, it will only worsen their grief. Krishna reasons that just as there is no way to remove the natural quality of heat that he imparted to the element fire at the time of creation, there is no way that anyone, even he himself, could withdraw the ecstatic nature of the Brajbasis imparted to them by his unique mercy. This state of affairs is the greatest glory of the residents of Braja. Of course, the devotees of Krishna in Braja feel special ecstasy when they join with him directly in the spontaneous pastimes found nowhere else. Nonetheless, the special pure love born of separation from him rises within them most of the time. The Brajbasis are the special recipients of super excellent viraha bhava, which is his greatest mercy, parama Mahatma, because it is filled with the highest special happiness, carried to its ultimate extreme. Although everyone in this world lives in separation from Krishna, only the Brajavasis fully experience Viraha Bhav. Their special ecstasy of separation from Krishna is obtained only by his special mercy, and only after very intimate association with him. Krishna feels very grateful for the transcendental love of his gopis and his other beloved devotees in Vrindavan. So he cannot bear to see the disastrous effects of the Viraha Bhava. He therefore cannot return to live in Vrindavan again, or even pay a short visit. Text 97. And when they cannot see me, they become so torn that the fire of separation leaves them sometimes as though dead and sometimes as though insane. Thus they partake of the nectar of wonderful ecstasies. Commentary. In this verse, Krishna defends himself against the accusation that he is ungrateful to have abandoned the residents of Braja. What the Brajbasis feel because of Krishna's absence is a concentrated agony similar to the burning heat of fire. They lose control of their wits and sometimes seem on the verge of death, showing no external signs of life. At other times, they seem afflicted by madness, but Krishna explains that these are all signs of the highest devotional ecstasy. Text 98. If they see a patch of darkness resembling my complexion, they embrace and kiss it, mistaking it for me. What more can I describe? Commentary. When the devotees of Vrindavan, especially the young gopis, see a shadow or a dark place that reminds them of Krishna's spotless dark blue complexion, they think that Krishna is standing before them. What else they do besides trying to kiss and embrace the shadow, Krishna would rather not describe, because some of his hearers might be unqualified to understand, and others might be plunged into distress. Even if he were to return to his devotees in Vrindavan and grace them with his presence, he would be powerless to soothe and enliven them. And even in his absence, the Brajbasis sometimes enjoy his presence on their own by picturing spiritual images of him within their minds. So Krishna feels he cannot do anything to change their situation and must remain an insolvent debtor, as he previously described. He should not be called ungrateful, because the circumstances render him helpless. Text 99. Therefore, my staying with them would be equal to my absence. Realizing this, I have not returned there. Now hear the real reason I married you. Commentary. Whether Krishna shows himself to his dearmost devotees or remains unseen to them, they will be torn by the ecstasies of separation, and he will suffer the frustration of being unable to help them. Such is the apparent misery of Krishna and his devotees. But there is another level of this transcendental reality, unseen to ordinary eyes. Krishna lives eternally in Vrindavan in his invisible, aprakat manifestation, endlessly continuing to bestow the enjoyment of his pastimes. In some confidential pastimes, he returns to Vrindavan from Dwarka in his aprakat form. Thus, at the same time that the devotees of Vrindavan suffer separation from Krishna's prakat manifestation, they continue to enjoy forever the manifestation in which his pastimes are aprakat. Some subtle hints of this have already been spoken by Krishna. I can never fully repay these devotees, and I am so utterly indebted to them. Text 93. Just by seeing me, they become so dazed and bewildered by ecstasies from deep within. Text 95. And whatever measures I take for their happiness will only double their grief. Text 96. Elsewhere, the evidence for Krishna's secretly returning to Mathura Mandala is more concrete. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11-9, the citizens of Dwarka mention Krishna's trips to Hastinapur and Mathura Mandal, and the ladies of Hastinapur, referring to Krishna's perpetual presence in Mathura, speak in the present tense. Oh, how supremely glorified is the dynasty of King Yadu, and how virtuous is the land of Mathura, where the supreme leader of all living beings, the husband of the goddess of fortune, is marking the land by his birth and his wanderings. Bhagavatam 1:10-26. The women of Mathura city also talk about Krishna's being present still in Braja. How pious are the tracts of land in Braj! For there the primeval personality of Godhead, disguising himself with human traits, wanders about, enacting his many pastimes. Adorned with wonderfully variegated forest garlands, his feet worshipped by Lord Shiva and the goddess Rama. He vibrates his flute as he tends the cows in the company of Balaram. Bhagavatam 10:44-13. In the Uttarakanda of the Sri Padma Purana, Lord Shiva relates to his wife an even more explicit account of Krishna's returning to Braja and remaining there permanently. And in the second part of this Brhad Bhagavatamrta, the glories of Goloka, the conclusion will demonstrate that Lord Krishna always resides in Gokula. Nevertheless, Krishna has chosen not to divulge to Sri Satyabhama and his other queens that he returned to Gokula. Hearing about this would distress them, and he cannot tolerate seeing his devotees distressed. Text 100. My dear proud lady, when living in Mathurapuri without the gopis, I at first had no desire to marry. Commentary. Krishna is now less hesitant to mention to his queens the gopis of Braja, since the queens have already been drawn to thinking about them. In this verse, therefore, he dares to use the feminine construction ta sam abhave, in the absence of those women. But still, he refrains from mentioning the names of Sri Radhika and the other gopis. Text 101. But from the mouth of a Brahmana, I heard Rukmini's letter, which told of her distress and her intention to commit suicide if she could not obtain me. Commentary. In response to what Krishna has just said, someone might wonder why he was so eager to kidnap the daughter of Bhishmaka and make her his wife. Krishna here answers that Rukmini was absolutely intent on his marrying her. As she said in her letter, O lotus-eyed one, great souls like Lord Shiva hanker to bathe in the dust of your lotus feet and thereby destroy their ignorance. If I cannot obtain your mercy, I become so weak from the severe penances I shall perform, I shall simply give up my life. Then, after hundreds of lifetimes of endeavor, I may obtain your mercy. Bhagavatam 10:52-43. In this letter she frankly revealed to Krishna the distress caused her by Cupid. O beauty of the worlds, I have heard of your qualities, which enter the ears and remove the bodily distress of those who hear. And I have heard of your beauty, which fulfills all the visual desires of those who see. Thus, O Krishna, I have fixed my shameless mind upon you. Bhagavatam 10:52-37. Confronted with such a determined plea, Krishna could not refuse. Rukmini is present with the other devotees, listening to Krishna's explanation, and if need be, she can verify the truth of his testimony. Text 102. So I destroyed the pride of a host of wicked kings in battle, took her hand, and carried her off, as all the kings watched. Commentary. Jarasandha, Shishupal, Rukmi, and Krishna's other rivals were fortunate to have had their pride crushed by Krishna at the Swayamvara of Princess Rukmini. After easily defeating the armed opposition of Rukmi and his friends, Krishna took Rukmini on his chariot from Kundinapur to Dwarka, where he married her. Krishna here claims that he did what the moment demanded and was not pursuing the pleasure of his heart. Text 103. But the sight of Rukmini made me think back on the gopis all the more, and the sorrow and distress this caused me made me very much disturbed. Commentary. Living in Dwarka, Krishna had been trying to forget his beloved gopis, but Rukmini's beauty resembled theirs, rekindling within him the fire of Viraha Bhav. Text 105, 104 and 105. Some 16,100 gopis had with vows worshipped Katyayani to obtain me, to bring my mind somewhat to peace by seeing a likeness of them. I married the same number of you, queens, here in Dwarka. Commentary. Of the young gopis in Braja, 16,000 attained Krishna's intimate association. The Mathura Mahatmya states, Gopyo gayanti nrityanti sahasrani sashodasa. 16,000 gopis were singing and dancing. The present verse specifies the number of those most fortunate gopis as 16,100, although the word cha implies that there were actually more. All the gopis were extremely attracted to Sri Krishna, but only some of them earned Krishna's complete satisfaction by undergoing the Katyayani Vrat to obtain him as their husband. These were the gopis who most zealously wanted Krishna as their own. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:22-4 records their prayer. Each of the young unmarried girls performed her worship while chanting the following mantra. O Goddess Katyayani, great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power, mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. No one can match the gopis' attractive sway over Krishna. But Krishna accepted his queens as substitutes in his pastimes at Dwarka. The principal queens of Dwarka are in fact direct expansions of the principal gopis. Text 106. Ah, willful woman, please understand, all that I relished in Braja gave me the highest pleasure. And though the glory of those times has now abandoned me, it still resides in that most worthy place. Commentary. By saying this, Krishna admits that he is not as happy in Dwarka as he was in Vrindavan. He cannot feel fully satisfied when separated from the gopis. And that is 8 o'clock exactly. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop there and just anticipate relishing the reflections of the devotees. Hare Krishna. Everyone's fallen in ecstasy, picking themselves up off the ground now, trying to scramble to their keyboards to write something.
First up this evening, we have something from Stefano.
Stefano, from London. Oh no, Sebastian's from London. Stefano is, where's Stefano from? You know? Okay. Stefano, Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna. Yesterday I received a BB set from Belgium. I do not understand if the commentary of the text is a purport of Gopi Purana Das, or it has been written by Sanatan himself. That's a question. So.
It is a paraphrase of the commentary of Sanatana Goswami. So what you should do is you should read very carefully the foreword by Dr. Joseph O'Connell, who at the time was the #1 authority in the world in the Academy on Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Very expert person, and also very favorable to ISKCON and to the devotees in the BBT. There he'll explain to you how it is that Gopi's translation exactly gives all the points that Sanatan gives, but he does so in a kind of paraphrased format which moves thoughts here and there to make it easily flow in English. But it's the same thoughts. Every once in a while, Gopi will use a phrase which sounds almost like he's writing it, but actually he's just connecting thoughts of Sanatana Goswami. And there are, especially in the second and third volumes, certain phrases and certain thoughts that do come in from Gopi. But at the end of the book, he gives a list of those things. Whatever he said, his thoughts, is there recorded in the appendix. Hare Krishna. So you can be sure that this is Sanatana Goswami's commentary.
And the rest of his comment, he says, I follow you every night live, and when I go to sleep, I listen to your Srimad reading. I feel in debt with you for this wonderful service. And
I mean, you just made my day and my life, because this is exactly what I intend to do, is to try to deliver these wonderful pastimes through Srila Prabhupada's books and through this wonderful Brhad Bhagavatamrta, which I also participated in preparing for the text for publication. But more or less I was just a witness of the extreme expertise of Gopi Pranadana Prabhu as the author and Jayadvaita Maharaj as the editor of the English. I just prepared it a little bit for him to put his final touch, which is speaks for itself, doesn't it?
He also mentions that he's from Italy.
From Italy? Oh boy. Well, thank you very much. I'm deeply, deeply touched by what you just said. And I will never stop as long as I have a breath in my body left.
Something from Brhad Bhagavatamrta.
Haribol Braj.
He says, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. How could anyone be an impersonalist? Krishna can be known through these pastimes. He is not a cloud, LOL.
That's the question that Prabhupada is asking, and the Bhagavatam asks, and all the other, especially intimate scriptures ask, how can anyone do that? And the question is, only if they are killers of the soul. Only if they act in such a way as to completely cover over their consciousness, their real consciousness, to the point where they're like animals. Killers of the soul. And Mayavadis. Who purposely want to kill their own souls.
Something from Sudevi.
Hare Krishna Sudevi.
She says, thank you for making Krishna visible to us. Yesterday I was in my car listening to your reading and I was laughing. Krishna is so humorous.
Yes, he is. He's the most everything. Therefore, we should get on board.
A comment from Bhakti Noel.
Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I appreciated hearing when you read, quote, just by seeing me, they become dazed with happiness, unquote. I can attest to this. I have found that just by a quick glance of Krishna, my heart, mind, and mood will lift. What a gift. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. That lovely realization.
And something from Vamsi Vilasi Das. He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Vamsi Vilasi Das.
This ecstasy in separation is the most inconceivable thing. I am in wonderment of the analogy that Krishna's returning to appease the gopis would be like making a fire rage more by pouring water on it. It seems clear that the fire will rage uncontrollably no matter what, and uncertain as to whether Krishna's returning would increase that ecstasy or not.
Oh, it certainly would increase the ecstasy. That's why he's hesitant to go back. See, unless you accept the inconceivable nature of Krishna, unless you can accept the fact that the intensity of love finds its most intense relish or intense intensity in the feeling of separation. The feeling of separation toward the beloved is more intense than the feeling of being with the beloved. That is the Siddhanta of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Lord Chaitanya's conclusion. Hare Krishna.
Next is something from Daityari Haridas.
Daityari Haridas Haribol.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for another wonderful reading. I was just wondering about the point in relation to Dhruva Maharaj, where it was mentioned that the residents of Vraja have a different level of experience of Krishna both internally and externally. I didn't fully understand.
Well, when Dhruva Maharaj was meditating completely on Krishna, on Vishnu, when he opened his eyes, he saw Vishnu in the same form. But there was no loving exchanges. But the devotee, the Brajavasi's level of absorption is so intense that Krishna is always there with them, having loving exchanges. Hare Krishna.
He also says, I regretfully haven't been able to pay as much attention to these readings recently as I've had services in the evenings. I hope this isn't offensive. I really want to listen to these readings every evening, but I also want to hear them properly.
Well, they're there on the YouTube, so you can listen to them anytime.
And then something from Dayalu Goradas in Wales.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
He says it's amazing to hear Krishna's completeness and his personal dealings. This is most soothing to the heart, which is feeling myself contaminated with impersonalism. Your reading this every evening is a saving grace. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you had a happy Varaha appearance day. And tomorrow is Lord Nityananda's appearance day. I hope you have an ecstatic festival. We will be continuing with our marathon to prepare the audio files for release and publication as an audiobook by the BBT. So we will be with you all in festival spirit by constant hearing and chanting of these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Thank you again. Shri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Shri Varaha Dev ki jai. See you tomorrow night. The creme de la creme. De la creme, 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 de la creme. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.